On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, take a bow, Miles Wood. Actually, don't do that because you're going to get called for another penalty. What a game. And not in a good way. Let's talk about it. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in. Making this your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. If you want to get in on the conversation, join our subtext. The link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do, chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. We're going to do that with our subtext crew a little bit later when some ratings have come out. Well, they're always out, but the awful announcing website wrote about it, about the ratings for the NHL, and they're not the best, but there is maybe a little bit of an asterisk in there where you see some improvement, and we'll explain it all. But it's not really where you want it to be if you're the NHL. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Obviously, going to start with the most recent game, which we didn't get to talk about yesterday in this Canucks and Avs game. And like I said, Kyle, playing Vancouver, I just don't get the good vibes going in to play against them. It's just the way I feel lately. They are that team that every team has an opponent that is difficult to match up against. And right now that team is Vancouver. There's other teams too, but you can kind of squeak out wins against them. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, Vancouver has your number right now. And it's crazy because they're struggling this season. Like they're not having the bet. They're not anywhere near what they were last year. And, you know, they're hovering on making the playoffs. And if they do, I don't want to face them because if this is how it goes, it might be a short playoff round for the Avs.
And see, and this it's twofold, because when we were talking about this matchup, we were talking about what do the Avs do when they get punched in the mouth, and that's what happened in this Vancouver game. You had a team score on you. It's been a while. And then Demko blackwooded you. Like, he gave you the performance that you've been having. And it's, what do you do? Like, the Avs actually had to play a hockey game. It wasn't outskilling and just breaking the will of the opponent. Like, Vancouver was bringing it to you. And how do they respond? It was a team-wide pity party. They just all got emotional about it and started whining and crying. And Miles Wood went bananas.
Nuclear.
And like I was mentioning it to you before we hit record, I'm starting to compile a list of players that might not be around with the trade deadline. And when you have performances like that, Miles Wood, how many more week to weeks or month to months do you have in your system? Because we could have done without that in that performance. That did not help the team whatsoever.
I was actually when Miles Wood finally came back, I was looking at that as like, maybe that's something that gets this team going, because like they were just doing this win-loss thing, and he'd been out for a long time. And for everything that Miles Wood is not, one thing that he is energetic, and he brings the energy. And I thought that he could infuse that into this team and really get them going and just bring that, just that 110% every shift. I'm not saying the Avalanche didn't do that stuff, but when he does it in a different way, you know what I mean? Like, he goes out there and he is like, he's not the most skilled skater. He's not the most skilled offensively, but he's going to out muscle you and out hustle you at every turn. But that's not what he did against Vancouver. Like, he did some silly and stupid things that for an Avalanche team will get you traded, will get you removed from this team, because they don't, that's not how the Avs play. They don't do that. They're not cheap shot artists. And they don't do like whatever he did Used his stick to. They were calling it spearing on the broadcast. Sure, go ahead. You know what? Call it that. Call it whatever you want, because it was dumb to do it. And I don't know. Like I've kind of have gone from, dude. Like I don't know if it's like because he missed so much time, he's trying to get all of that back and just be everything all at once, rather than just going out and doing what he can do.
The Josh Manson effect. When he comes back from injury, he does a lot of that.
Oh yeah, I think there's some truth to that too. And when Josh Manson's not doing that, when he's just playing his game, he's wonderful.
Yep.
But I don't know. I don't know if that's what Miles Wood was trying to do, and just because he's been back for enough games, I would expect that stuff. Maybe in his first or second game or something like that. But I don't know what it is, man. I just thought it was it doesn't help your team. It deflates your team when, there was 32 penalty minutes for the Avs, and he had 31 penalty minutes, and he had 23 of them, I think. Not helping, dude.
This comes down to Miles Wood. You got to read the room. You got to look around at the effort that you're like nothing. And by the way, I'm not putting this entire loss on Miles Wood. It was a top to bottom, just abysmal effort. But you're not helping when your passes look ugly. Everybody is turning the puck over, Nathan MacKinnon included. When you're turning the puck over, like driving into the zone, like 2 or 3 skates in, and you're just giving up the puck, and you do your little head throwback thing, that's indicator number 1. This is going to be a long 60 minutes for the Avalanche. And that's what it was. And for Miles Wood to go out there, you were 0 for 2 on the power play, Colorado Avalanche. Mm-hmm. Vancouver was 1 for 6. You are really stacking the deck against you if you're giving that many opportunities for a team that, for some reason, does not like Colorado, will get chippy, will get physical, will get fighting. Why are you just making it worse on yourself when you're already having to fight momentum and fight for your place when nothing's going right, and you're just making it worse? So that was kind of selfish on his part, but it was a whole all-around team thing led to that Vancouver game.
I didn't mind the start. I thought their first period was really good. I thought they had a good they started up here and just methodically just played worse as the game went on. And this is just the back and forth of the Avalanche that we have come to expect all season long. Of you genuinely don't know what team you're going to get on a game to game basis. And this one was what started was actually pretty good. I think you outperformed them in the first. And then it was like ships passing in the night. Things kind of evened out in the second, and then they were the much better team in the third. And when you're down, and we say it all the time when the Avs are up, and you look at the numbers for a third period, and the other team is out everything you, because they have to. They're the team down. Well, that was the Avalanche in this game, and they didn't turn it up. They didn't turn it like you got outshot, you got outchanced, you got out high danger, you got out everything.
And then you started puck chasing.
Everything. That included. And you were losing battles on the board, and you're having stupid penalties. It was just complete. The wheels just completely came off in this game where I thought you started well. And that's what I kind of wanted to see. And if you're causing penalties just because you're just you're trying hard and you're going for a battle, and you throw your stick gets an errant throw up to the fit, like I can deal with stuff like that. But when you're getting like these game misconducts and stuff like that, that's not the Avalanche way. I hate to use a phrase, but it's just not how they play. And and then on the flip side of it, even though Hughes was gone, mm-hmm. Quinn Hughes was gone for this game, I was not sitting here and being like, oh, that of course that benefits the Avalanche. But the way that they've just been playing against Vancouver, I was not like, oh, that we have such a tremendous advantage now. And then the final nail in the coffin is just Thatcher Demko, who's just having a season where he's like the Avalanche. You don't know what you're going to get out of him, but against the Colorado Avalanche, he will shut you out. it's just the way this season is going. This is turning into a season unlike I've ever seen before with Colorado. In just what are they? They will go out and look like what I'm wearing, a Stanley Cup champion, and then the next day they'll go out and look like a lottery team.
Yeah,
and you hear it in the postseason or the post game stuff, and you always hear the same phrases: execution, not getting pucks in deep. It's all the same stuff, and it's getting a little bit exhausting. And the season is a slog as it is, and when you don't have those, we're not going into a game and you're confident watching an Avalanche team that, like, man, they're on a roll. They're going to be tough to stop. The other team better play their best hockey. That's not true right now. The other team can play okay hockey, and you got a shot. And I say all this now, and they could turn around against Calgary and look like the Stanley Cup team. Mm-hmm. That's what this season is. It's crazy.
Yeah, and this goes into like the conversation around the trade deadline. It's interesting because what do you do? This team works and it doesn't. How do you fix this? Because the effort problem, how do you trade to fix effort?
I don't know. Like, well,
because like you can, Cale Makar was visibly aggravated in this game, and you could see that it was one of those, they got punched. The score was starting the second. Once they were down, everything was starting to aggravate them. They're not getting mad to, okay, I'm taking this over. It was just like, why are we down? Why are we like everybody looking at each other? Why are we doing this? Just, hey, go get me that goal. Instead of explaining away why we're in this situation, hey, go get me that goal. Go get me that next one. Next guy up. Like, there is not that pride and want to go out there and save face, because none of this matters to the team. Like, wins are just like, that's cool. We got a hat trick. Neat. We lost. Execution. We know better. And it's just like, everybody's like, whatever.
I don't know. Like, and if you look at the numbers for this game, like the top line drove this team. You didn't get in this game when things are going well and your depth lines are helping you out. You didn't get that in this game. It was your top line did everything for you. And when the Avs turn into that, we know like the history of that happening for any team when you have a top line team is not good. So it's just everything just, again, it started off okay, but by the end of it, I was like, okay, this is the negative Avs. This is them. And again, I've said it before on here. It to me, it's not lack of effort. It's just lack of execution. They're not wrong in saying that word. They're not wrong in saying it. I'm just saying I'm getting tired of hearing it. If you know that's what it is, then go execute. Yeah, know exactly what you got to do and go do it.
That's why I say the effort word, because they know what they have to do. You have to put in the effort to do it. And that's where the disconnect is. Like, it's just not there. Like, everybody knows how to play. You're in the NHL. You've been playing hockey at this point for over 10 years to get to this level. And it's not like you don't know what to do. And Jared Bednar hasn't really changed the formula. The Avalanche way is the Avalanche way. You know what you have to do. It's just the doing it part. That's the effort. That's where it applies. You know what you have to do. It's when it's not going your way, do you still do it, or you're just, why are we in this position? That's when you see the body language, that's when you know things are going bad.
So because of that, are the Avs of the mind of the team that we always revert to when we talk about this in a Tampa Bay Lightning state of mind? And if you haven't heard us talk about that, is that where the Avalanche are headed right now? We'll talk about that next. Let's hear from Game Time. And if you're looking for tickets for your next big event, whether it's a concert, comedy show, or sporting event, finding the right tickets at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time picks, it's never been easier. Have you heard, Kyle, that tickets for the Super Bowl this year are like 50% less than what they were last year?
Oh, they bought the DVD for the last one.
I think that's, they just bought that Sports Illustrated DVD and are just going to rewatch that thing. But yeah, so tickets, I mean, even so, they're still like thousands of dollars, but hey, maybe a little bit more affordable for people. So if you want to go to a Super Bowl, maybe this is the year. Use Game Time and Game Time Picks. How it works. The app does all the work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless tickets. The best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. And if you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something happens to come up. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply. So again, create the account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Okay, so this back and forth that we've just kind of been getting accustomed to for the Avalanche for this season. And I'm not of the mind to feel like, hey, we're into February. I don't feel like that's really going to change all that much. You're going to see good performances from this team. You're going to see kind of flops. I mentioned the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we've talked about them many times of being a team of just get us to the playoffs. I think that's a little bit different for them personally this year. I think it's different this year. They just want to make a playoff spot. They're on the fringes, but from last year and before that, when they were going on their runs, I genuinely had the mindset of, and I think they did too, regular season, sure, it matters, but it doesn't matter all that much. We know we're a good team. We know we can make the playoffs. Just get us to the playoffs, and then we'll do our damage. I'm not saying the Avalanche are thinking that way of just get us to the playoff, and then we'll be the best team in the playoffs. But do they have the mindset of just get us to the playoffs, and then we will be more consistent? Which is a weird thing to say, but you would have to think everybody on that team, and it's true for every team in the playoffs, you're going to get your best performances. So is that where you're at right now of just, hey, like we're in a playoff spot, continue that. And then when we get to the playoffs, you better be more consistent, better even kick it up a little bit more.
No, absolutely not. I think
Why
that
not?
this team hasn't proven they can beat anybody in a non-playoff format. They're 15 points back of first in the Central. Like, what makes the playoffs any better? We just watched them get hit in the mouth against Vancouver and just whine and cry and lose the game. What happens in a series where it's the same team, where after game one, if you get lucky, they know how you're going to approach them the next night or the next game. And then what are you going to do when they figure you out and they counterpunch? Are you going to start looking around, guys, this is the playoffs. Why are we doing this? And then you'll lose a game. And then you'll lose another. Like, this team hasn't proven they could beat anybody. Like, usually teams like Tampa, when they just kind of get to the playoffs and go, they have an identity. Teams with an identity that can, like, that have no sport in the regular season. They just know. Like, the Avalanche haven't proven anything in the regular season that gives me any confidence for the playoffs. Right now, they're a losing streak away from not even looking at the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and my question isn't to say that they're just going to win every single game but we've mentioned this before recently too. It's like when there's this yin and yang of the Avs, like when they have a win, they look great. When they have a loss, it's the opposite. They look bad. And there hasn't been really that in between where they've come up short in a loss and you can say, hey, I'm okay with how they played in that game. I think I've said that one time this season, honestly. But one time that and it was recent. God, I'm trying to like rack my brain what the game was. I'll think of it. But like you're not saying that a lot about the losses. So that's what I mean. Like going into the playoffs, like just getting a better performance when it's just a duke 'em out, back and forth. Every possession matters. Incredible saves by the goalies. And you come up short and you'll be like, that one really just gets under my skin because they played great and came up short. Not this, we're not executing stuff that you're hearing after every loss.
Like, I don't feel like this team is playoff built. They can't, like, this team's not good enough. Like we're championing.
Well,
hold on. We're championing 2 shutouts, but it was the Flyers and the Blues. Like it's not like they're making huge impacts against the teams they need to. They're losing games to Columbus, Chicago, Anaheim. You're losing games to Vancouver. That you made Thatcher Demko. You gave him a shutout, and he's been really abysmal this year. Why is this going to change when you get the best of another team that deserves to be in the playoffs? Because you're not going to be seated really high, and then you're going to get their best. What about? And honestly, this team, when they perform like this, Nathan MacKinnon's not stepping in. That you just got shut out. So you're the champion, the hero that you're saying, oh, but they have Nathan MacKinnon. He didn't have a goal. Cale Makar didn't have a goal. MacKinnon drew in. Everybody did not contribute to that loss. Like it was a complete goose egg. So when you get to the playoffs, is Nathan MacKinnon going to step it up? Well, he's got to step it up to keep his playoff hopes alive, because if they drop the Calgary and Edmonton back to back, you're going into the Four Nations in a spiral, and you're really counting your points the rest of the way. I mean, they're in a wild card spot right now. What about that makes you feel good?
I will tell you, because they're pretty comfortably in a wild card spot. Like I would have to push back against the argument that like they're not a playoff team. They're a good team. They are a good team. And if you look at who's below them, yes, they're better than those teams. And right now they are 31-22 and 64 points. Minnesota is struggling. They are 2 points away from being third in the Central and not even have to worry about a wild card spot. And Minnesota is reeling a little bit. So third in the division is definitely feasible right now for this team. And if you want to flip it to if they were an East Coast team, the Red Wings have the top wild card spot right now with 61 points. So, like, I don't want to sit here and just rain on them and just say, like, you're not deserving of anything right now, because they are. The NHL season is difficult. NHL games are tough. We love to tout the parity in the NHL. And are the Avs were like at the top of the league? No, they're not. But they're also not a playoff team.
Well, it doesn't give me any confidence to say, yeah, we'll take this team and put it in a tougher situation. Like right. I do not feel good about, like, you got the teams above you: Winnipeg, Dallas, Minnesota, Edmonton, Vegas, LA. Put them in a series. Yeah, I do not feel good about, and they shouldn't either. They shouldn't be like, oh, just get to the playoffs. No, you can't even handle the regular season. You can't even handle Vancouver and Chicago. What makes you think of being locked in a series with these upper teams that have an identity, know where they're going and what they're doing? You don't understand. Like, this team is so win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. Like, you get on the bad end of a win-loss, 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 you're out of the playoffs. And this whole season is a crater, and it's not good. I just don't feel like this team has an identity or deserving of saying, just wait till the playoffs, when you're fighting to make it to the playoffs. When you're second or third, and you're like close, it's a close race, like maybe 3 or 4 points separate 1, 2, and 3. Like, then you could say, yeah, let's make it to the playoffs. We're getting a favorable matchup. Right now, you're getting the best out of, you're going to be a wild card entry. You're getting the number one. Like, it's not going to be ideal for the Colorado Avalanche. It doesn't get easier.
I'll say this though, I like there is enough time, even with the Four Nations removing 2 weeks of the season. There is enough time to because you want to be playing your best hockey heading into the playoffs. There's enough time to start doing that and righting the ship of being more consistent. And I'll turn to last year's Nashville Predators when they went on an incredible one. It happened right around now of when they started to play incredible hockey and just start ascending through the standings. Didn't work out in the playoffs, obviously, but you're playing your best hockey going into the playoffs, and that's what you want. They still have time to at least do that. I don't know, but you have to go off of the 5 months that have come already from this season, and it's tough to say it could happen. but it is a possibility that they can figure this out, and maybe it does include a couple moves where you bring in guys, and we'll see.
If I don't feel good about going into Vancouver or Calgary or Edmonton, I don't feel good about a playoff. You're going to get swept. Like, you have the best goalies you've had in quite some time in Colorado, and you still can't figure it out. Like, it's starting to be a little bit more of a problem, and you got to stop viewing like the Avalanche as the Avalanche of always, and see like this. There's something up. There's something amiss, and they don't just lose; they just completely unplug, and that's a problem.
It's crazy. It's crazy how the wins are so good and the losses are just like, well, what is going on? So, all right. One last thing we want to get to. We mentioned at the beginning of the show, and that is ratings for the NHL. Not so good. We'll talk about that. All right. Threw this out to the subtext people as well, so they're going to chime in on this article that was over on what is it? Oh, Awful Announcing. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And they mentioned like the ratings going on for the NHL on ESPN and TNT, and they highlighted the most recent week of last week, and it's bad. Where is it here? So they said the league got off to a poor start in the season, a steep 39% year-over-year declining in opening night viewership, then drawing a record low audience for the Winter Classic. It's been a tough go for the NHL. So they bring up the game on ESPN between the San Jose Sharks and the Seattle Kraken that averaged 175,000 viewers. That's the least watched NHL game of the year for the network and the lowest viewed program on ESPN for that entire day. And I mean, the game so this goes on to say the game, which began at 10:30, which is obviously not a prime time, 10:30 Eastern, was outdrawn by its leading game, which was an Iowa State, Kansas State women's basketball game. And the Cyclones and Wildcats, those two teams averaged almost 400,000. So you were led in by women's basketball that drew almost 400,000, and your game between the San Jose Sharks and the Seattle Kraken, the numbers just fell off of a cliff and went down to 170,000. It goes on, but why? I don't want to just come down on the Sharks and the Kraken, but why is that your game that you're broadcasting on national television? And I think this is ESPN's obsession with young players and rookies.
Well,
thinking that we care so much about them when we would rather see the established players in high profile games.
Well, I want to throw this to you because the numbers are down on TNT as well.
Yes, it gets into that. Yep.
And I'll throw this to you. What's the big story in the NHL right now?
Well, I mean, outside of everyone's talking about the Four Nations tournament now, but
is there a team to watch? Is there a player to watch? Is there anything that should captivate my attention? Is there a Boston Bruins team chasing down history? Other than Ovi, 17 goals away from Gretzky's record.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on in the NHL that makes me care? If I don't have rooting interest in a team, why would I watch anything other than the Avalanche right now for me? Like, I'll watch my Avs. I watched the Devils the other night. Mm-hmm. Why would I watch anything else? What interests me? But nothing. There's no stories right now. There's nothing going on in the NHL that will captivate the college basketball fan, the NBA basketball fan, the NASCAR is about to start. You're not going to steal their eyes away because that's exciting. They have stuff going on. Like, the dust is settled on all the trades. Now what? You have a Four Nations tournament, an in-season tournament. What storylines do I care about?
Yeah, I think Ovechkin maybe is your biggest one right now. the Miko trade was actually is a big story, but I don't watch ESPN outside of just there happens to be a game on there. So but I don't get a vibe that they really covered it all that much.
Yeah, but
and I put
it's an NHL thing right now. I don't think it's just the network. You could put this on any network right now. There's not anything interesting. There's not a team chasing history, a really great team. There's not like a really great player. Everything's just kind of it's parody at its finest right now. And there's like usually you watch like, oh, I want to see if Boston could win another. Let's see if they could do this again. Or wow, he's scored a goal in every game. Or when like I know Bedard's taken a step back, but you don't see that step up in young talent either. Like like Celebrini's he's been doing all right, but there's not a new kid, a new face tearing anything up. Cale Makar has been pedestrian. Nathan MacKinnon is not really there. So like all these faces that you're
he's leading the league in points, so he's doing all right.
Like in this,
I get what you're saying, but here, like for me, you don't need to sell me on to watch a hockey game, but that's not the majority of people that you're selling to. And when you said like you don't put it on the networks, I 100% do. They're the ones who put the money up to bring in the NHL, so they need to sell why you should turn into.
That's
their
what I was
network.
saying. What are you selling?
They don't do anything. They do nothing. ESPN does nothing. And I warned everybody about this when they signed the contract. They don't give a rip about the NHL, and they bury it on the Ocho. And they'll put it after at 10:30 at night after women's basketball. They don't care about hockey. And there was I'll get to the comments in a second, but I don't mind the broadcast teams. I really don't. Are they the best? No, they're not. But I can stand to listen to a broadcast from ESPN. But as soon as that game is over, we're back to LeBron. That's a problem. The audience built into ESPN is not a hockey audience, and they know that, and they don't sell it to them. Because as soon as that game's over, it's right back to what they do want. And they don't tell them that there's guys in this league that are playing incredible hockey and incredible games. They don't do it. They just it's up to the hockey fan that's already baked in to come in and watch the sport on our network. We're not going to put in the effort to reach out and get any other fans for that. Like, look what they did with like Caitlin Clark and women's and women's NBA and even women's college when she was still in college. Like that was huge. People wanted to watch it, so they promoted the heck out of it, and it works. Well, it's two different stories that they're selling you.
But it's also down on TNT as well. It's not just an ESPN issue. It's a total hockey right now. Like you don't have anything to sell right now.
So let's see. Wednesday's viewership on TNT, the Flyers and the Devils. That was on TNT. 253,000 viewers. That was actually 59% increase versus last year's comparable window. And that game was also non-exclusive. So they could watch it on both. Mm-hmm. They could watch it on TNT or on MSG, probably, if this is the Devils.
Because on NBA, the premier games on the NBA are TNT, and you get the lead-in show, and that's where they do gangbusters over there. Like ESPN covers everything else. Like TNT is the driving force. And like even TNT, like what do you have to? It's an NHL thing. Like you could put this on any other network. What am I trying to sell? A general, like a checked out hockey fan, or a fan of another team? Why should you watch my team? Like there's nothing buzzing going on in the NHL right now.
Well, I get what you're saying with like, yeah, there's no like real like major like rivalries and stuff like that. That's where you need to sell the individual players, and the players they're selling us are 19, 20-year-olds that haven't grown into the sport yet. You need to sell McDavid all the time. I'm sorry. I know Avalanche fans probably don't want to hear that, but you do. You need to sell him. You need to sell Matthews. You need to sell Ovechkin and Crosby still. You need to, you do need to sell Makar. Like, sell the individual stars, because you're in any sport right now, with the exception of college. College, there's going to be rivalries day in and day out. That's where rivalries live now. They don't live in professional sports anymore. You might get like the Avalanche and Vegas Knights but that was from like 3 years ago. That's gone. That's gone. They don't hate each other anymore. Rivalries come and go in professional sports and they move on from it. So it's tough to sell that. You do have to sell the athlete. And I think ESPN does a horrific job, horrible job of doing that. And there's no reason for people to tune in and to say, like, watch this dude play. Watch this guy play. Your eyes will bug out of your head. They don't do it. They do say, so I just want to finish up this article. Says if there's a silver line for the NHL, it's viewership on ABC. ABC's Saturday game between the Rangers and Bruins. There you go. There's an original 6 matchup. Drew a season high 1.1 million viewers on the network. The NHL's few broadcast windows this season have generally performed well. So it's matchups, it's network, and it's time. What time are these games on? Stop throwing games on at 10:30 at night, please. Even if you back it up a half hour. I know that sounds like minimal, but just back it up a little bit. If you want, please do the full hour. That would be even better. But it's everything. It's the way the NHL kind of networks and gets their name out there. It's the way the network or don't do that. And it's the same for the networks. Everybody could be doing a better job of trying to promote this stuff. And they really don't. They don't. So if you got anything to say, go for it. Because I got to load up subtext. I gotta let them.
No, it goes back. I kind of think it's also an NHL problem, and they've got, and we've said this for 100,000 years. They got to do better about getting their name out there. They are very good at feeding it to a NHL fan. Like, you turn up any broadcast on any network, they're going to show you the old. This is what this rivalry goes back to the 70s, the 80s. Like, look at them playing on 90. Oh, you remember this matchup in the 90s? Well, in this day and age, with how fans take in their media and their sports, you got to captivate them right off the bat. And if you're showing me the Vegas Golden Knights and the San Jose Sharks, you got to tell me why. That's going to be an outlier because West Coast teams, they never draw. And it's just difficult because the NHL needs something to buzz about, and nothing's going on. Like, there's no storylines going on. It's just trades, who's going where, and that's not going to get anybody's interest. Like, everybody's rolling their eyes at NBA trades right now. Everybody, like, they just don't matter. They don't care, and it's not going to make me watch a game.
And this article, like I said, references the games from last week, which we are in the throes of an NHL and NBA season. Like, right now, like is where maybe like the least interest is because these seasons are so long. So their numbers are going to dip usually around this time of the year. Cody over on Subtext says, given that the article is referencing TNT, ESPN, ABC, etc., I'm going to assume it's talking about TV viewership, which can be fixed by not blacking out half the games and in general making the product more accessible to a general audience while also growing it in the process.
Yep.
Yeah.
I hate blackouts.
Horrible.
They're even worse where I am.
Yeah, because you're in a funky area, right? Where
I get Buffalo, the Devils, the Rangers, the Penguins, and the Flyers all blocked out for me.
We are so beyond blackouts. Like, that is such an archaic way to promote or broadcast a game.
Thanks for blacking out the game. I guess I'm not driving 5 hours to Pittsburgh.
It's crazy. Joe says the ESPN broadcasts are terrible. TNT is fine most nights. Seems to me they might have better numbers if games were not starting at 10:30. There you go. On a Wednesday night for a third of the country. That's the other thing. Like, yeah, the primetime games on TNT, like they promote for the NHL Wednesday night. East Coast is not going to watch the 10:30 at night game on a Wednesday night.
They will.
They're not going to do it.
Those time slots are never a problem when Shohei Ohtani comes up to bat.
You think so?
Oh, Angels and Dodgers games?
Yeah.
Those were appointment television. Like, you would, and nobody batted an eye at those start times. It's always when it's like stacked. It's not like that's the only game on the night.
Mhm.
That's just like the end of it. Like it's an easy thing to complain about, but it is West Coast.
Yeah.
You saw you got to deal with the time zones, but like everybody would pay attention to Shohei. So
Yeah. And him saying like the ESPN broadcast, and I said it earlier, like I don't hate them as much as everybody else does. I think they're okay. Are they great? No, but they're okay. ESPN has always done things that annoy me, and I think that they do well enough. I'll say that. Let's see. So Marie says ESPN broadcasts are just so bad. I would never watch one of their broadcasts unless I absolutely had to. I hated their product before they added PK Subban. And now it's just unwatchable. I adore the TNT crew and would watch them anytime, but it seems like the games haven't consistently been back to back on Wednesday nights like they used to. I don't know. Am I just missing them? It seemed like last year I could always come home Wednesday, turn on hockey, but every time I've tried to do that this year, it hasn't been there. So she's asking, is this a user error? I don't know. That's a good. Are they doing the? She's right. I mean, I remember just always a double header on Wednesday. Have they gotten away from that this year?
I watch exclusively through ESPN Plus, so I haven't turned on network television in quite some time.
I don't know. And the PK Subban thing, like, I think he's a good analyst.
I do too.
Sorry, I think he's so knowledgeable. I think he's really good at it,
and a very fresh take and flavor. Yeah. It's so much better than the good old boys club.
Yeah, man, I agree. Like the in studio thing for ESPN, like during the intermissions when it's him and Messier, I think they have a good dynamic together.
Yep,
I really do. And finally, Avs fan forever. It's bad because even if you pay for Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN, you sometimes get locked out of a game unless you have Fubo or Sling. Get with the times. Nobody pays for straight cable packages anymore. It's more of like, blackout stuff, or get one of the dozen packages to go find and watch your team. We got to streamline this stuff. I thought we did with ESPN Plus because they do offer a ton of games. If you could just remove those blackouts, it'd be so much better.
Oh, I watch it with my kids. I'll just be on Disney Plus. We'll watch Smallville, and then when it's bedtime, go right down. It's right there. My Avalanche game is right there.
It is a nice setup. It is. Yeah, I can credit for that. So, and again, the last thing that this article references, like you get, you get kind of looked at for ratings when it's playoff time. Sure. Regular season, you can say like, this was good, this was bad. How did you do in the playoffs? If those can hold true, then you can finish the season strong. So we'll see how that goes. So, all right. That was a lot today. So, but we had a lot to talk about. So we'll be back tomorrow. We'll discuss, looking forward to the Calgary game and a really cool article over on The Athletic of a player survey. And it's kind of the things that they dislike in the league. Fun stuff. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and making this one your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow, where you made it through another 24 hours, where Sidney Crosby is that much closer to becoming a Colorado Avalanche.
Can he draw an audience?